Flow Riders, and welcome to this edition of The Flow. I am your co-host, Doc Rock, along with my awesome co-host.
It's Katie.
And today we got Luis kicking with us. What's up, Luis?
What's up, everyone?
All right, so today we are talking about how we remote produce this show. And I think this is, we talked about it in pieces before, but I don't think we've done a whole episode on it yet. So what's cool about this is every time I go to a show, Katie, and someone will undoubtedly ask me, hey, what if I want somebody else to press all the buttons while I do this? And I'm like, well, turns out we do it every single Tuesday. They're like, wait, what? And then I think the funnier part is when I give them the distances. So I'm in Honolulu, right? Mm-hmm. And Katie's in Massachusetts and Luis is in Hollywood, Florida. And they're like, wait, what? Like it always... Wait, I'm not understanding what's going on. Yeah, you do. It's simple. You know how to use Zoom? Yeah, that's it. You're good. That's basically, it blows people's minds. It's kind of cool.
It is pretty amazing. And it's funny. So so this past week on my personal podcast, I had Rachel as my guest, and she lives in the same town as me. So we were in the studio together. And now it's weird for me to be like, not remote producing like with someone in the same place. I'm like, oh, but you can see all my notes, and like I gotta like lean across you to change scenes. And it is amazing like how easy this process is and how good it is at bringing people together over large distances. So it was a great question that came in from one of our flow riders who just really wanted like step by step how we do what we do. So I think it's gonna be fun to jump through. It means Luis is on camera the whole time with us this time. So it's a win.
No popping up in the Luis bubble.
No, we should make you do the Luis bubble to show what the Luis bubble
there
does.
There you go. Luis bubble.
The Luis bubble.
He's like, he reminds me of VH1 pop video. I mean, just waiting for him. Did you know that in 1978, Belinda Carlisle once had a toy cat she called Bangle, and that's where the name of the group came from. That is not true. I just made that up.
You had me fooled.
No accurate facts in this episode.
No, I don't know where they get. I think they meant bangles like in bracelets. Because, in the 80s, you wore all of the weird, colorful I think that's where she got it from.
Yeah.
And wait, actually, Belinda Carlisle is the Go-Go, so I completely mixed that one up. Anyway, Chris is going to come after me because Chris is my only other music fan in here.
Chris, you need to live fact check us. Well, let's kick off by talking about what our current flow is for the flow, because we've evolved a little bit over the last 100+ episodes. But we started off with this idea, which I'm pretty sure was Doc's, because all good ideas over there to Mr. Doc. But we started off with this idea that we wanted for everyone to understand what the process was, what the flow was for creating a video podcast. And so we are live recording all of our episodes. So right now, we are live. We are on YouTube. We are in front of all of our flow riders. They can contribute to the conversation. They can ask questions. We can ask questions of them. And then that video goes through an incredible process over a week of getting edited by Luis and getting kind of tweaked and ready to go. And then it gets released the following Tuesday. So we're in this kind of week-long flow for the flow that kicks off with this live recording process. And what we're talking about today is how do you do the live recording process? So unlike some other shows where they may be connected in through Zoom and then they record their show, we're live streaming it. But the process itself is the same. So Luis, since you are our incredible producer, what is the starting point each week as you're getting ready and thinking about how to prep? So you're the one who's pushing the buttons, driving the show. What are the first steps as people are thinking about getting into this remote production space?
Well, the first steps obviously are going to be, you most likely already have your own runner show. So it's either one of two steps, whether either you've created your own show and now you want a producer to take over, or you have someone like me who could actually make it all from scratch because you came to me first. So there's two ways to go about it in that way. If you have your own run of show, then it'll be a taking over of the process, which kind of leads into the communication that we would have between the client and the producer to make sure that I am broadcasting or recording to your desired locations. So that's always the first thing. Once that's set off to the side, that's where I kind of say, I think that's what the week to week basis starts of like producing the show. Once you have those things set, then we use this program Milanote to kind of communicate our thoughts and our settings for what's going to be coming up into the next week. So that's the first thing that I do, is check Milanote to see who the guest is going to be, who who the sponsors are going to be, and all the information that we would normally talk about throughout the week, setting it up. We have now been implementing Milanote to actually convey that information.
Cough button.
You can tell I haven't been talking a lot this morning, so got that cough out. So that's the first thing that I always do, and I always go ahead and check that if we do have a guest, that it's not just you and Doc, that I got their name correct and that I got all of those spellings and doing all that kind of behind the scene things, because that's what I'll be doing even days before we go live, which is I open up the program and I make sure that all of the scenes and the run of show, whether, like I said, whether I made it or was given to me, that all the scenes are set up correctly before we go live.
You know,
Yeah.
Louise, I don't know if you know this, but the best part about whenever you explain stuff is it goes back to your waiter sort of bartender days. You're like, okay, so we're going to make you an Aperol Spritz. And Aperol is an Italian bitter liquid known as aperitivo. It's made with herbs and spices and fruits and roots. And then we just add a little sparkling water.
Yeah, I can't turn that off.
No, it's not a bad thing, but it's funny because it is totally. I remember my fine dining days, right? So it's still. I mean, I was like, man, he kind of reminds me of. He has a little towel and stuff. Today's specials are
right, like the special of the day. Today's soup is broc de jour, whatever. So,
okay, sorry.
No, it's
What a derail.
it's super. You do absolutely do that, which is incredible, and I think like it's nice to have a producer to handle all of those things, because even though Doc and I could do this show ourselves, there is a lot that goes into pre-planning and the planning stage of a show, especially if you're doing it week after week, especially if you're having guests coming on. Like, all of those are different elements and steps. So knowing that Luis has like the Ecamm profile for the show, it's all built out, it's ready to go. And I know that he's double checking everything, making sure that everything works correctly, and he's got everything all set to go. It means it frees Doc and I up to focusing on, the content, what guests we want to bring on. And we don't have to worry about if the scenes are all set to go, if the names are written correctly, all the kind of little details that happen behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think the other part of it that also is pretty cool is, again, when he's doing the setup and he's going through the process, you're covering for the guests some of their guest questions even before they ask them. Like, you're really, really good at that. So you kind of alluded to it, but what are some of the things that you say in order to sort of calm the guests' nerves or to keep them comfortable? Because you say them, I don't know if you pay attention to you saying them, but you say them all the time.
Well, I might not be sure exactly what you're talking about, but I'll give you my view on it. When it comes to the guests, I feel that once you have the run of show and you already know the path, so to speak, and you know the steps of your show, that's the easiest way that I can convey or give the guest that ease of mind, where the same way that Katie was just saying, I don't have to worry about all the little details. And that's kind of like a mental stress that happens, even if you don't have it on the first burner, so to speak. Even if you have it on that back burner, it's in the back of your mind. It's something that's going to take some mental energy from you, even if it is oh, I still need to do that, right? Even if you haven't thought about it, just the thought that you have to get to do it is kind of just an added little stress. And that's what I take off from you guys. on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So that same way, being able to give the guest the run of show them that we already have everything planned out and that the only thing that they have to worry about is the conversation, I think is the biggest way that I can convey that ease or peace of mind to the guests that we have on the show.
Yeah, you're correct. Because it's sort of like a doctor with good bedside manner. Or I tell, one of my friends used to drive Uber a lot here in Honolulu because everyone just assumes everything is so expensive here, which it kind of sort of is. Whenever he would pick somebody up, he would explain the route that he's going to go. And just in case they had their Google Maps, if they had a different route that they wanted to check, because everybody thinks that the cab driver is going to drive them on a whirly whirl. So he would always tell people where you're going. And a lot of them were like, oh, like that settled their nerves, right? Because everybody thinks that they're going to get ripped off in a tourist location. And if more people did that, it makes sense, So I think in a way you're explaining like the doctor, like, okay, we're going to take this, we're going to give you the shot. And yeah, it's going to hurt for just a second, but don't panic. We'll give you a little spray of ice or something to make it go away. I think that really does help. And I see the faces because I'm back here with the people in the back end when you give them the breakdown and they kind of like, okay, I think I got this. We got a couple of our people are just excited to go. They're just ready. So, yeah, thank you for doing that. I think it helps.
I do think it seems like it is less scary for people that may not be doing this as often as we are, where they step in and we're like, this is our producer, Luis. And then Luis is able to we're prepping and kind of getting ready for like our talking notes and opening everything. Luis is then able to say like, hey, welcome. Like, do I have your name spelled correctly here? The show starts with a countdown timer. It's going to be about 20 seconds. Like, here's what that looks like. And then we're going to go into Katie and Doc, and then we'll come up with you. Do you want to share a screen? Do you have anything? Like, you go through kind of this mental checklist, but as you're going through it, it's helping you. It's helping us remember kind of the flow of the show. And it makes the guest comfortable in that they know what to expect, as Doc said. Like, they know exactly how long the episode's going to be. They know what to expect throughout. And they're able to see it, to visually see it all the way through, which I think is actually like a really good step, even if you are like, regardless of what you're using Ecamm for. We know people who do that when they're pitching a new client, where they're able to like actually take the client through like exactly what the output video will look like because of how Ecamm is built with these profiles and scenes. So, so Luis is able to just open up the flow profile, click through the scenes that he's built and prepared in advance, and that takes the person through what the content experience is going to be like and lets them ask any questions along the way. So that is just that is worth having a producer. And if you don't have a producer, having that like setup and flow is how you produce a show correctly, whether or not you bring guests on or if it's just you and a co-host. Having that pre-built, knowing what the flow is going to be, knowing what the run of show is going to be, I think is really important for your own peace of mind, for planning, for anyone else that's joining the show, definitely for the viewers on the other side. So I think that getting into that mindset and into that process makes it much, much easier for us all along the way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like the part when you mentioned that I ask if they're going to share a screen, because it's also just preemptively thinking on their end, like, what is it that they're trying to share with us?
Yeah. What am I talking about? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. One benefit that I really want to share with people, because I don't know if people fully understand this, and this was I think a change that we made, but pretty early on, is that so here the connection points and how this show works is that Luis has Ecamm open and has the official flow profile built out and the scenes built out and all of the graphics and elements, etc., is all ready to go. And so he's recording on his computer isolated files and the finished video production, right? So he's got Doc's isolated video and audio. He's got my isolated video and audio, and he's got the fully produced show. So that when we're done, at a bare minimum, he has all the files that he needs to be able to edit and create sort of our finished episode. But because Doc and I are both joining as guests through Ecamm for Zoom, we're calling to Luis's Zoom and joining that way. Because we also obviously have Ecamm and are using Ecamm, we're recording just a clean feed, clean audio and video on our end. And then we are able to send that to Luis at the end of every recording as an extra backup in case we have internet connectivity issues or in case anything goes wrong. we're creating a ton of different video files so that we can get the best possible outcome. So there have been episodes where like Doc's internet's been wonky, my internet's been wonky, something crazy has happened, but we know that we are all recording on our end, so we all have all of those files available to us. And we ask our guests to do the same for the most part. You know, there have been a couple of times where it hasn't been convenient or they don't have the resources to be able to do it, but we are collecting, you know, all these different video files, which I imagine, Luis, is like hugely important, because if there's an issue in any of the files, you have an extra copy, you have another option to be able to edit, right?
Absolutely. And to add to it, it was Christina's interview that we did a couple of weeks ago where we were having some issues and like her camera kept like disconnecting and she would have to just like wiggle the mouse to get it to reconnect. And every time it did that, it would shut down her Zoom feed and then restart a new recording. So when it came to editing that podcast, that was like almost to the point where I had to exactly go back to the redundancy and get the file from like YouTube to make sure that I had a clean file so that I knew where to place all of these little clips.
Where you place this stuff, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's just to get the highest quality.
That, one other good thing. Okay, so the process that Katie spoke of is an old school podcasting trick. You know, I started video podcasting back in 2009 when nobody else knew how to do this. What we all did, you know, Twit and the Mac Show, the Big Show, some of the shows that we did back in the day, is we did what was known as a double ender. So in that case, I would open up, you know, at that time, you got your little microphone, you would open up QuickTime and you would record with QuickTime, and then yes, it did, Eden. I'm reading Eden's comment. Video podcasting started at the same time as regular podcasting. Just nobody knew what to do with it. Only a handful of nerds were doing it the hard way. But yeah, it's funny because
it's way hard. You think it's hard
now?
Yeah,
everybody goes, "Oh, it's so new." I was like, "No, it's not." I mean, and Twit. You know, I was there on Sunday, right? So for the podcast that I'm on Twit, that podcast is 20 years old, and we've been video since day one. It's super funny that people think video podcasting is new. And even some of the OG podcasters think video podcasting is new. I was like, no, fam. Like when Apple TV 1 came out, we were the top 5 video podcasts. There's only 5 of us. So anyway, what we did was called the double ender. You would open QuickTime on your machine and you'd press record. And then you would have your audio recording, sometimes with the machine directly in, or we would record on an external recorder like the Zune H4n or some sort of, you know, standard issue like regular recorder. We would send the files to the last person, and trust you me, back then, uploading anything over a gig, it took 2 days. You could not start, if you did a podcast on Monday, you couldn't start editing until Thursday. But we did it. Like, and we did it like it was cool. Thousands of episodes deep, you know, so when we tell people this stuff is so much better today than ever before, like people still don't quite understand. And even if you're not going to do the Zoom recording or the Ecamm recording, you should always record a double ender. So that's the reason why those people who have a Rodecaster Pro or some of the other boards, you can record a version of the audio in the interface as well as the computer. So you're saving yourself from having to re-record. Having to re-record an episode almost always sucks because there's gems that come out naturally that now end up coming out forced, and it ain't the same. It misses that certain, to steal Katie's Canadian je ne sais quoi.
Nicely
it just takes it. It's missing something. So I love the fact that we have Zoom is recording, and we're also recording our individual Ecamm feeds. And then, of course, YouTube.
Yeah, actually, you're right. We have the extra level of Zoom recording as
correct.
well. Yeah.
And Ecamm and YouTube is recording. So in theory, we have safety net on top of safety net with a side order of insurance policy and then some padding in the back. You know, like when mom used to get that report card and I used to put the Nancy Drew books in my back pocket because I knew what was coming. It get about 3 whacks before she figured it out. take those books out of your pocket. Oops. Why are you laughing, Luis? Because you did that too, didn't
Because I
you?
never thought of it. It's such a good
Oh,
idea.
you
That's why
dumb.
I'm laughing.
Missed
See,
opportunity.
you know I'm a genius, bro. I put the Nancy Drew in the back pocket and then wear the long jersey so she can't see. Dude, a couple cracks. You got at least a couple cracks out of there. Her arm would get tired before she figured out you didn't feel nothing. Dude, I like that.
Contingency plans are hugely important, and I think it again. Like, I think this goes back to the idea of having a producer. So because Doc and I are both just joining as Zoom guests, we have Luis who's controlling all of the process and all of the saving of the files. So Luis is able to remind us, like, have we turned on to record on our end? We now jokingly do our swearing in, right, at the beginning, so that so Luis knows exactly where in the video to start looking, to start the editing process, and is able to cut out everything before that. So there's things that we probably wouldn't think of on our own because we're focused on the content itself. And even though we know how to switch scenes and switch cameras and do the kind of the basics, we might not be thinking of some of these important background steps that matter to getting the final result that we're looking for.
I just want to answer this real quick. I'm over here typing and I can just say it. Keisha said, is a Rodecaster Pro required for video podcasting? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I would suggest that most people that don't know what they're doing stay the heck away from it. You can record a video podcast with an iPhone. You can record a video podcast with that old camcorder that you have from 1972 that came in 3 pieces with the VHS tape. You can still record a video podcast with that.
Yep.
Rodecaster Pro is an
I'm
audio
not using
interface.
the Rodecaster
So, yeah.
at all right now.
Yeah.
I just have my mic plugged in by
The
USB.
short mic plugged into USB.
When I'm
And with what we're talking about today, if you're talking about a remote producer, then even less, because I'm the one who has to worry about all of that interface and stuff. That's why I get hired, so that all you have to do with the power of Ecamm is connect with a good enough microphone, like I think it's the MV6, right? Just a short
it's right.
USB
I can't
microphone
grab it.
that just one cable to your computer, and with some headphones, and you have everything that you need, including your camera, to record your video podcast.
Yeah. And again, this is where it comes in handy. Like Katie said, when you have a remote producer helping you, it allows you to just focus on talking to camera. Like, you don't really have to do anything else. That's all being handled by your remote producer. And I think the other thing that people forget, like, once we start getting into this podcasting thing, we kind of become addicted. We're like that person that I'm going to say something crazy, and all you know better, but I didn't know better till last year, okay? Everybody that's been to Disneyland is telling everybody why they go to Disneyland, and I'm like, whatever, man. I'd rather spend that money to go to the Philippines. I could live an entire month off of what we spend on Disneyland in a day in the Philippines, blah, 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 blah. Get to go to the first Disneyland, and then turn around the corner and see the Millennial Falcon, and my face was like, So once you start podcasting, you're like those irritated pukes who went to Disneyland and be telling everybody why they got to go to Disneyland. You can help them because you can actually remote produce their first 2 or 3 episodes for them, because it's a very simple process. I mean, you got to know if Luis can do it.
I'll take that
Actually,
one.
That's a really wonderful example for a couple of reasons, because we didn't just go to Disney World, not land. That people are judging you now, Doc.
That's right,
But,
LA. What the
Disney
heck do I
World
know? I
in
live in
Florida.
Hawaii. Leave me alone.
But what is great about your example is that, like, if we had just decided we're just going to go to Disney World, you and I would have completely screwed that experience up, because neither you or I are Disney people.
good point.
And so we would have bought tickets and we would have shown up and we would have been there at like the wrong time. We wouldn't have known where to go. We wouldn't have made reservations for lunch or dinner. Like, we would not have any idea. But instead, we found the best Disney people who know
Yay.
all the stuff.
Thanks,
and we
Lou.
went to Disney World with them, right? And so they were like, they had the apps on their phones, they had the maps, they knew all the history of everything. So our experience was phenomenal, and we left Disney World feeling incredible and telling everyone how cool it was, because we had this really like customized experience. It's actually exactly the same with having a podcast producer. Like, can we make a podcast by ourselves? Yes. Would we screw up a whole lot of stuff, and would it be way harder in the process of getting started? absolutely, because we would just be excited about doing it like we were about going to Disney without knowing all of the things you need to know, because there's a level of experience that goes into it. So having someone like Luis or having a podcast producer is the same as going to Disney World with Disney people that can tell you where to go, where not to go, when you need reservations, what you're about to screw up on, so that the final experience just feels smooth and awesome.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
I do. It's a great example, Doc,
it's
on
good.
even a deeper level than you thought.
Yeah, no, I did. And then, so first of all, big ups to Kelly and Paul, and then Lou, and then Jeff, and then
Lou,
Joe.
yeah.
We had like the Disney elites with us, so we went everywhere. And I, not to sidetrack this podcast, I wish you guys could have seen Luis's face when he came off the Star
We
Wars
have a
ride.
video.
Oh my God. You ever seen like a grown man revert back to 8? That was Luis's face. Oh my God. Did you see the size of that thing? And then he was
100%.
talking to me and then Darth Vader shook my hand. Oh my God. Like, yo, it was the best. It was the absolute best. We got an excellent comment from Intangible Production. Ecamm's worked great for remote guests. I used to produce a town hall live for a company every quarter and had the CEO live in their HQ, but the employees from all over the country joining as virtual guests. Wow. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And we do a similar thing, if you haven't seen it yet, Intangible Productions, where we have Ken and Glenn, who are our co-founders and developers and bosses and everything. And they come on and they answer questions about Ecamm. And we try to do it once a month, but sometimes, things get busy or we're at shows, because like this go round, we're going to be at a show. But yeah, whenever you see the email, so make sure you join the email list, we'll send you like, it comes Ken and Glenn for the live Q&A. It's a lot of fun, and it's good. It's a good time all around. So thank you for that comment. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's also a good reminder that obviously right now we're talking specifically about podcasting or shows, but certainly this process works in a number of different ways, especially in Ecamm, right? Like we have customers who are using it to just open up their remote interviewing feature, whether it's interview mode or Ecamm for Zoom, and they let people just jump on and they do like recording. So similar to how Luis pops behind the scenes while Doc and I are doing our show, you could open up an Ecamm for Zoom call and pop behind the scenes and let a coworker or a partner or whoever record their video, and you could produce it by putting on logos or switching between a couple different camera options or recording or playing like screen sharing or playing recorded videos, and you could produce a fully like beautiful produced file for them as a remote producer. Like, so this concept of I'm the one pushing the buttons and building out the run of show and kind of holding all of the files and holding all of the features and tools is not necessarily specific to podcasting. It's certainly something that you could do across the board or hire someone to do across the board for you. So it's just, again, kind of the mindset of, and I love that Luis kicked us off with this, like really thinking through, how do you want the video to look when it's done? Whether that, so what is the run of show? What are those different scenes that let you build out your podcast, your presentation, your video recording, your reel, whatever it is, and however long or short it is, it's still, if you can think through it in advance, then the rest of the process is just a rinse and repeat, which is great.
We got a great question from Chris. Cast ahead, Chris Stone says, first of all, hi, Chris. Chris came on my show this weekend, and he blew my mind. I got things to show you when we're in Boise. It said, Luis, do you bring Katie and Doc on as Zoom directly or via Ecamm for Zoom? I'm assuming he said interview mode in Zoom, but it's Ecamm for Zoom. And what are the advantages or disadvantages? Chris, I'm adjusting your question. Double check me if I said that wrong. But we don't call it interview mode in Zoom. We call it Ecamm for Zoom. And I think that's what you meant. What are the advantages or disadvantages for you both? You want to start, and then Kitty and I can add?
Yeah. What do you think, Luis?
Well, one of the things that I noticed when we actually made the full conversion from interview mode, because that's how we started the podcast. And then once the Ecamm for Zoom was integrated, we're now completely on Ecamm for Zoom, because they just have a better system to host the files and the videos that actually just convey the highest quality. And that's something that was just working better. So with the Ecamm fam, like the way that we do things here, we always want to provide the best. So we recognized that Ecamm or Zoom was the best feature, so we completely converted to that. And then it adds a bunch of bonus features like the recording into Zoom, right, as another redundancy, as a backup. And I just right off the bat, I noticed a better connection with our live production just right off the bat. So that was the biggest thing that I recognized from the difference between the interview mode and Ecamm for Zoom.
I'll tell you what mine are, Chris. Zoom. Everybody, including their mother, Maestro, Gizmo, Azilla, cats, dogs, your stupid brother-in-law,
Children,
they all know how to use
adults.
Zoom. There's a level of
Very
comfort
true.
that just changes their initial reaction when they start with the Zoom link. When they open the Chrome interface, wasn't difficult at all. At all. I mean, really, it's the same thing. But familiarity is a superpower. Everybody knows how to use Zoom. So that's the first thing. The second thing, in the little Chrome window, like for me on the guest, you and I have been on shows where we're a panel and there's like 6 or 7 of us on, right? In the little Chrome window, it's a different thing. On Zoom, I have Luis and Katie on a 32-inch monitor, all of that humongous Puerto Rican head dead center. Like, it's just, I can see it on my people, right? And then on my teleprompter, I have it rotating between Luis talking and Katie talking. So I'm looking at the person who's talking. And I think the other thing for Zoom, now this is going to be crazy, for those people who, like Katie, are doing today, where you're just using an MV7 or some sort of USB microphone, we handle all of the switch witchery in the background for all your audio stuff. It is so well simplified because Andy's team over at Zoom and Ken and Glenn talked for like a month and a half solid, like how can we eliminate the majority of the audio problems that people have. When we were doing it the Chrome way, you can mute a site, you can mute a browser tab, you could have another tab feeding into that tab, you could have people who have their speakers on that are blasting. The Zoom ability to ignore speakers is better. We got musician mode and all those things built in. And while those Zoom can have some complicated audio portions, for the most part, it's normally 90% done as long as the users aren't trying to do something crazy. Now, the minute you inject the Rodecaster Pro into the situation, now it's up to you, Rodecaster Pro owner, to know how to use that thing. If you don't, yeah, you can make it complicated. But luckily, we have Daniel and Alec, Neil, who's been teaching people how to get to speed real quick. It's not difficult. It's a matter of adjusting a few buttons. So, for instance, not to make this too complicated, what I do is I have my mic on and it's feeding into Zoom. And then I have the chat channel, which is hearing Katie and Luis. But I have everything else muted, and I don't have the chat channel with the ability to broadcast back out so that they don't double back out. So I have the chat channel muted, but I have the listen button on the Rodecaster Pro. That's the green one. So the red is to mute it. The green one lets it come in my headphones. So only my headphones can hear them. It will never go out to the broadcast. That's a simple thing to do, but that's it for me. So I just think the familiarity just makes the situation so much better. And yeah, there's that.
Yeah, I would say the only limitation, and I think this is something we'll probably update anyway in Ecamm, is that in the Ecamm interview mode, which isn't going away, by the way, like you could use both, you can switch back and forth between them. There's not, you have the ability to do whatever works best for you in the moment. But Ecamm interview mode has the ability to have a back channel communication. So like during our intro scene where we have music playing, we used to be able to talk back and forth to each other during that time period, and no one no one watching on the other side would hear that. Whereas in Zoom, we're automatically all muted. We can type back and forth to each other in the Zoom chat, but we can't actually talk. But that's such a small thing compared to the amount of benefits. And I think the biggest benefit for me as a more muggly, not more plebeian person than Doc and Luis.
I use both of those words, Katie. You've been hanging out with me way too much.
Nice. I know. I'm an English major. I got some words.
Love muggles.
But what I do really like about it is that because you are not on a web browser, you like the you're losing a lot of the latency, you're increasing the quality of it. So it's less scary for people. I feel like when they joined through Ecamm interview mode, the thing that we had to face often for people who don't do this a lot is the preview feed that they were seeing of the show was not the highest quality because Ecamm was sending the highest quality out to YouTube or to the recording or wherever else. And so it was a constant like, oh, like, is that like, is that what the broadcast looks like? Or like I'm seeing a delay. Like there was kind of a lot of fear over, oh, is this the quality that I'm giving you as a guest? And it wasn't, but it's difficult to kind of get out of people's head that way. Whereas in Zoom, what you see is what you get. So I'm looking at my video quality. It looks great. It's crystal clear. I can also see what Doc's video quality looks like. And then I can see what the finished production looks like. And it's I think easier for me in a closed environment to just be able to understand how this is being produced versus, as Doc was saying, in a web browser, you have like a little video version of like what you look like, and then you have a slightly bigger but still pretty small of the feed, and all of it are like preview feeds, so the quality is much lower than what Zoom is showing you. So yeah, I think familiarity is one of it, and then the other is just a quality control. I think just people understand what's being created and what's being shown, and you feel more comfortable with it. And it lets them, there are some people who might not be Ecamm people that are joining as guests, and they can use features that they really like any of the touch-up features or some of the things that exist within Zoom that, maybe us people don't necessarily use often, but some people might really enjoy. So there's some options and features that exist within Zoom that are not in Ecamm natively.
Yeah. Now here's another thing. This is not to get too technical, but just to give you some understanding of why Zoom is super dope as well. Zoom, like the Chrome browser, does use HTTP, aka standard web connection, to make the initial handshake. And then it switches over to something that's called TLS, which is a transition layer. It's basically for security. And then in order to get your video to look so much better than pretty much any other protocol, it uses the same thing as your routers do in the house, or your Blink cameras, or your, what do you call the other one? Ring doorbells. That's a UDP and TCP. It kind of switches back and forth. UDP is the master. TCP is a failover just in case something goes wrong. And the last thing that Zoom does really well that the browsers don't do is they also use what's known as an NTP connection, which allows them to sync all of the signals together. So Zoom may lose sync for a second, NTP, Network Time Protocol. It goes, hey, you're supposed to be here, and it tells the other computer, and then they'll come back together. When Chrome disconnects sync, Chrome is like, whatever, man, not my problem. He's just like your brother-in-law. Chrome can be ignorant. It comes to that kind of stuff like, sorry, brother-in-law, you're an idiot. But it just, in the nerdery of it all that you don't need to know is that Zoom handles the things that you don't have to worry about, whereas the other ones don't. And in the business, they have the best video compression on the game, because sometimes I'll look at a file and it'll say it was shot at 540, but it still looks clear. So I think too many people trip out over it. I need 1080, whatever. I was like, let Zoom do what they do. Leave them alone.
It comes down to like, Ecamm was made for video. Zoom was made for video. Chrome and Safari and all the internet browsers are not. That's not their main purpose, right? So like they can do it, great, yeah, and but their focus is on other things. Correct. So you're going to get a better experience all the way across the board. And again, it's not to say like I use Ecamm interview mode in lots of instances. It's just, it seems easier for regular shows that we're doing.
It's really weird because I was kicking and screaming. I will never use interview mode anymore. I only want to do it in Zoom, which is funny because I was the anti-Zoom person at one point. And it was mostly because people just would love to play with those dang backgrounds and all of that weird crap. And I was like, bro, please stop. Please just leave your camera on, clean your room, tell your kids to sit down. Like, what's wrong with telling kids to sit down? We used to get told to sit down and we didn't move. Like I was scared to let my heart beat because it might look like I was moving. And the kids be like, Mom, I need to do it. I was like, oh, Jesus. Anyway, let me stop. So, Louise.
Louise, do you want to open up and show Milanote?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's swing over to...
Where's my mouse?
It's like right about now.
So I feel like someone asked us about that on a previous episode. So Milanote this is like in the planning phase. So we were talking about how important the planning part of all of it is. So we just talked about the actual production and how we use Ecamm for Zoom. But for planning, this is how we like asynchronously are able to plan out our content and let Luis know like what we're thinking. And then typically, other than this episode, because we know this stuff so intimately, but typically this is what we have open, all of us, the three of us in the background, as we're working through the episode, because this is where we can get things like, actually four of us, because Paul has this as well. But this is where like all of the links are housed. This is where, you know, we're looking at the outline, what all the information for the episode is, who the sponsor is, what the sponsor links are, all of that. And this is like an awesome tool. Doc, how did you find Milanote?
Let's see. I was looking at, you know me, I creep on everybody's channels because I'm always trying to learn how to do stuff. And one of my favorite creators was like, I'm moving from doing all of my planning in Notion to doing it in Milanote just because it had a little bit more of a visual situation and you can slide things around. Whereas Notion is very vertical. Everything has to be down a straight line, which is cool. But I like the idea that I can just move these boxes and move them around. And Luis, I won't be mad at you if you grab the box that said next steps and moved it to relevant links because you could always put it back. So just grab it by the top. Pick anyone. Just grab any one of those boxes from the very top. There you go.
Yeah,
and then you can move it to wherever you want. And then, you know, that just made it, for people that are used to like doing it on the scratch paper, it had more of a scratch paper vibe, and you can sort of move things around and, you know, you can readjust it later. They got tons and tons and tons of templates in there for you to look at things and try things. So even when we're building out a show, like I'm building out like what feels like 25 shows right now, for not just podcasts, but for YouTube videos. I use it for YouTube research. I use it for when we're planning to go to like Crafting Commerce or Card Party or so many other events that we're doing. It's really, really good. I just like the ability that you can move things wherever. Notion still has its things that I love, but for just like busting out a map, like in the spy movie when they're about to get into the bank, like Italian Job, and then they spread it on the table and they bring out the little cars and Lego chips and a piece of hot sauce or whatever. It feels like that. Like I can just think and move. So I like it. It's cheap.
I think this comment from Eden is great. So Eden says, that's my issue with Notion. It feels so rigid sometimes and my brain doesn't work that way. Exactly. So like please do not just immediately click Doc's link and go and buy Milanotes. Sorry, Doc. Please think through what works best for your brain that will help you to plan and coordinate and collaborate with people, right? So like this works well for our team because we're able to, like, we're not that big of a team. We need something that's like easy for us all to see and access, easy for us to have open while we're recording, and like lets us just drag and drop things in and is really visual, right? Like, so it's easy for us to move things around.
We're a bunch of neurodiverse people
really well
too.
For exactly, right? Like that may not work well for someone else's team. Maybe Notion works better. Maybe just building out the scenes in Ecamm is a trigger enough for what the episode is. Maybe it's just you and someone else and you're both, you know, producers on it, so you don't need that stuff. I know that like Jeff C, who does social media news live every week, they use like a Google Doc that they have everything outlined in, and that works really well for their brain. So it's just, I think it's great to just sort of see that there's a bunch of different options, but having like a really solid plan and being able to communicate it so everyone on the team knows is what's going to be helpful when you have many different people that are collaborating, right? Like Luis needs to know like all this stuff in advance so that he can build out the scenes and make sure that we don't have the wrong sponsor in there. He knows what the guest's name is, how to spell it, like what we're going to be talking about. That also helps him to flag like, hey, this episode might be way too long, Katie. You put in 9,000 pages of notes, or like, hey, you know, like we don't have links for Paul, or hey, we're missing like, you know, an about us, about the author, about the guest. We might not be able to, you know, we want to say that at the beginning of the episode. Like it allows us to kind of have some talking points and to know where we're all at.
Yeah,
I
right?
want to. Luis, what do you think?
No, I was just I'm glad that you mentioned it because, you know, in today's episode, because it's us three, there's really not much on Milanote to show, but it's usually mostly like when we have a guest, like their bio information and all the things that we need to share between each other that we could always easily find here on Milanote. But to answer Eden Lou, right, if, you know, Notion doesn't work for her, she should also check out MindNode, because that's also another one where it allows you to kind of like plan or just kind of get your ideas out, and they work in a bubble form. So that one's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think James too. I think I remember learning it first from Jared, and he went to Jared, and then from there you go. My note is a mind mapping guy, which is cool. There's tons of mind mapping ones out there. It was really cool. You can actually tell ChatGPT to make you a mind map too, if your brain can do that. Nobody mind maps better than George. I mean, not George. Jeff. Jeff is one of our Ecamm fam. That dude makes mind maps that will melt your brain, bro. They're incredible. He made a whole mind map of like Ecamm and the Ecamm process, and we all just sat there just looking at the screen going, like, I know how to use Ecamm, and it broke my face. All right, let's talk about some of the other supporting casts, like Speedify, Stream Deck, whatever else. What else you got cooking in your tech stack, as the nerds like to call it?
Oh, when it comes to the tech stuff, oh, absolutely. My companion with me always is my Stream Deck. It's not only for all of my production, but also for my editing. So when I jump into Final Cut Pro, it converts itself into my assistant for my editing. But with Ecamm and the Stream Deck, you have a variety of different options that are built in right into their into the system, where you could just download the profile, and you have pretty much the entire plethora of controls for Ecamm just on your Stream Deck. So whether it's changing scenes or specifically putting a button for every single scene. So in case you're just jumping around between scenes, you can have a visual picture of what scene it is that you're going to press. You can bring up graphics, turn down graphics, just the full suite of what you can do with Ecamm. You would be able to put it onto a button onto your Stream Deck. So that to me is like the best thing, whether it's for my remote productions or my solo productions. The Stream Deck is probably like my favorite thing.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
They just came out with 2 new models. One of them is the Pro, which is probably above and beyond what most people are going to do. Also, it's $1,000, so you guys are cheap.
You don't need the Pro.
I do. The second one, and so does Paul. Paul needs the
Maybe
Pro. Paul
Paul
got like 50. Paul got 5011 Stream Decks on his desk. Maestro's like, dude, get this crap off of my spot. I need to lay down over here. So there's the new Stream Deck modules, which we saw at NAB, which are fire. They're literally just like little circuit boards like this, and then you can put it in whatever. So people like Luis and I, who know how to 3D print a 3D V60 coffee filter holder, you can print your own custom, like Captain Kirk type joints, so you can have them wherever. Like I could hang one right underneath my Elgato teleprompter there. And there you go. That's Luis's custom mount for the Stream Deck. Then the last one they just came out with, which Torres mentioned, is there is a new joint called Virtual Stream Decks. And then so you can have them just like hovering all up in your screen, round about anywhere, and you can put them in applications. So like if you're a Final Cut cat and you got these 5 or 6 tools, right? I know most of you guys are Final Cut noobs. You can put the 5 or 6 things that you use and have it just right there in the app. So you can just cut, trim, turn the volume up, turn the volume down type situation. So very, very handy. Go and check these things out. But thank you, Elgato, because they take good care of us. Yo, listen, Stream Deck is life, bro. When I have to use a computer without a Stream Deck, I'll be mad. I'll be mad. Like,
but you see, look,
I'll be reaching for stuff that ain't there. Like, I have legit hit the table in the hotel trying to reach for the button on the Stream Deck, and it ain't there. It's like, what the hell?
So just like Doc was saying and Katie was saying, like, you don't need the Pro. You really have to see what's your best use case scenario. So there's a 6 button, a 15 key, right? A 15 button, a 32, and then the Pro series that are coming out now. I have the 15 key, and I love it because it's like that Goldilocks zone for me. Because it's not too big, not too small.
Yeah.
And the best part of it is because it's not too big, it comes with me wherever I travel. So this easily fits in like any slot in my bag, and it's with me. So no matter where I go, I always have my same controls, which is like, I guess, a convenience factor for me, right? Like that sets me at ease.
I kind of need to buy
Yeah.
a Neo to travel with because when I'm editing, and I don't stop editing when I hit the road, right? I still shoot my
Yeah.
videos. And I swear to you, I tapped the table in the hotel so many times last week trying to hit Stream
Yeah,
Deck
bring a
button
Neo
that
with
doesn't
you.
exist. Like, so I think I need to go buy me a Neo real quick. Katie, I never
Yeah.
went. I kept thought it the last time. Should I take this one from the office? Like, no, we need that for the show kits. I'll leave it here.
Yeah. Nah, it's fine. The Neo, if you don't know, is their like more affordable kind of beginner line of items. So they're smaller but also a little less feature rich. Good for travel.
Tora said, TSA, ma'am, what is this? Oh, it's my 150 button Stream Deck. TSA would
Yeah.
definitely wonder what the heck you're trying to do
Yeah.
with a whole bunch of Stream Decks in the box.
Yeah, TSA may not be thrilled. Well, I know we're coming up on time here, but we definitely need to talk about Speedify
For
because
sure.
they are the like one thing that literally saves the day multiple times. So
One thing that rules
internet
them all.
connectivity and Speedify. What do we think, Luis? Are you using Speedify on your
Well,
end?
that's the whole thing. Now, we've been talking about the remote production, but if you're looking to do this for someone else, right? Like, let's say you were
Yep.
trying to get the information to see how you're going to handle it. The internet connection is probably the biggest or the most important thing when it comes to a remote producer. Because not
Yep.
only am I having to secure that I have adequate bandwidth for excuse me, for the connections coming in. Like we had mentioned, Doc is calling in from Hawaii, Katie from Massachusetts, and they're they're connecting to my computer here in Miami, and then from here we're also broadcasting it out live to YouTube, to all the interwebs. So I need to know that my internet connection has enough bandwidth to handle all of that without breaking a sweat. So my first is that I am fortunate enough to have fiber cable or fiber internet here at my location. And with that being said, I'm just not solely reliant on that, because we experienced a situation on one of our earlier episodes where my neighbor came out and did something to my physical line and broke it, and it literally broke the internet, right? And everything on my end exactly, everything on my end says that it's okay, but when we tried to hit the gas and go on the stream, nothing was happening. We then found out that, like you said, he damaged the actual physical cable. And since then, I've been using a 2-tier system, which is I have a wireless internet system through T-Mobile. That is like one of those home internets that you can use, and that sits there as a secondary backup. So I have, like a gig up and down on the fiber, and then I also have an extra 300 up and down off of that wireless. And with the program of Speedify, I'm able to unify both of those internets together to mesh them and make sure that I have a strong cable connection. So in case, let's say for instance, because it's happened over here, an accident on the road has hit the main like power line that has that, and now it wasn't that my neighbor broke the line, but like the main line is broken and we would be without internet. So if I have a client that we have a timed paid gig for a specific slot, I can't allow any of those things to be a circumstance to allow me not to do my job. So with Speedify and having multiple internet providers, I'm able to prevent anything from happening. So in case somebody does hit the pole outside and knocks down my fiber, I know that I'll still be able to transmit through the wireless, T-Mobile setup, and the mesh with Speedify will allow nobody to even notice.
There you go. It's like Chris Rock said, right? You know why they should change the name of insurance to? Never mind. I can't say that on this show.
Yeah. In case stuff happens.
Yeah. I just knew Luis would remember that. All right. So if you could improve something, what would it be, Luis?
As far as remote production, It's
then we
really
got 'em.
tough because we got things pretty much on lock, you know, and
what
it's
about
not
you,
taken.
Kate? Because Luis he's thinking this one through. What do you think? What would you improve?
I mean, I think we're always tweaking and making small improvements, and that's kind of the goal, right? So that like you have, if you've got the big stuff locked down, then it allows you to really make like small improvements to be better every single time.
Yeah,
So
but that's
there's no like one big thing that I can think of, but I think like we've been making, and over the years we've been making small changes. Like, I think we've gotten a little bit less graphic-y so that the feed is a little bit cleaner and more polished and professional. We've moved to Ecamm for Zoom. We've done a bunch of things as we're testing and playing with it. So
I
can't
want
think of
y'all to
anything.
hear what Katie said because I be trying to tell y'all like graphics doesn't make your show more engaging. Graphics makes your show more complicated. You know what makes your show more engaging? You are the star of the show. You don't have to be a star, baby. I'm gonna sing a duet with Val to be in my show. The only thing that I would honestly improve, which is kind of out of our hands right now, would be I would like to have the talk back, even though we don't need it. It's just from a safety mechanism. I've always had it in my production role as a real producer. Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Anybody who
as,
can tell
as
me
the
who sing that
producer-
song, I'll give you 5 points. Anyway.
But as the producer with Zoom, I'm the one who actually doesn't really get to hear the conversation. You know, if I'm actually doing the production and I kind of put you guys into the green room, you can have that conversation that doesn't go out. Me as the producer, I'm just not part of it. So if you are looking to that, then there's really nothing to really worry about. But if you're part of the mix, like if you're like today's show part of it, then that would be the one thing that you would say the back channel that is missing.
It's just a safety thing that I'm just used to from producing regular shows. That just something that I kind of want. Okay, so Tommy, we'll finish your question up. Is there a way to equalize mic levels for guests or other audio inputs? Or am I missing something? Yeah, it's you. You have to do it. Not you, like you, Tommy, but you, the person that's running the thing.
Producer.
In our situation, like doing it live, because we are going to basically put this together as an edited thing at the end. It kind of doesn't matter, and I know sometimes the guests, people freak out over it, but once you start at a level, you kind of don't want to mess with it because we're going to fix it in post. This will become recording, the live recording will become a finished episode. So if Katie's a little louder than me or quieter than me at the end when Luis is in Final Cut, you run it through Auphonic, all the levels are the same, you walking out of here. Right? People always ask the question about, well, I downloaded all these tracks from Epidemic and some of them are louder and some of them are softer. Like, how does Ecamm fix that? Ecamm doesn't. That's called pre-production. You go into your GarageBand or your whatever and you even them out. But see, nobody wants to do that, so they want us to come up with some magic trick that does it. There is no magic trick. In the real world, if I'm standing down the street at KGMB studio with $1 billion studio, you know what I do? Level every single file by hand. Still.
Yep.
So in a way, with Auphonic and the stuff that we do here, it's actually easier. But I think everybody thinks there's some kind of magic sauce and there's not. And at the end of the day, I've watched many shows from the news today, Sports Center, Super Bowl. There's 15 different levels. And you know what? I don't care because I hate the Chiefs. And I just want whoever's playing them to kill them. And I know the Raiders won't be there for another 5 or 6 years. But once we get there, then I'll complain about the levels. Because it ain't, I mean, really, if you're engaged with your people, nobody's tripping off of that. We overthink that because that's our insecurity. Our insecurities of overthinking whether the people are going to trip on stuff like that. And even, I'm going to say something that's kind of weird. A lot of times because we're doing what we do, our audience are all sort of producer type people as well. So like I'm in Twit the other day and in the middle of the stream, somebody comes in the chat and they go, "Hey Doc, your video is choppy." And we're in the middle of having this fantastic conversation about AI and what's moving forward or whatever. And I just wanted to ask that person, while I'm having this conversation live on Twit, what can I do right now to touch that internet? Nothing. I'm not Spectrum. My last name is Rock. So telling somebody, now I'm professional at this, I do this all the time, it doesn't throw me off. But I have seen you have on a guest, they're relatively new, right? So let's say I'm talking to Eden. Also, Eden, dear friend of mine, like me, very neurodiverse. If you tell Eden that her internet is tripping while she's in the middle of a thing, guess what ADDEDEN does?
Makes it a priority.
You just broke her. You just absolutely broke her stream. So I know you guys mean well, but honestly, those things we normally can't help. We can unmute, right? If we're muted. But like when YouTube is tripping or the internet, like things that we have no control over, it really, really does not help us when people say that stuff. And I get it because we're Ecamm, we're going to get those, and I don't expect anyone to stop because you're just not. I've learned to ignore it because I bring this example up every time because I think it's important that you guys know. I watched Kathy have a perfectly functioning stream that was quite amazing. And she's in her recipe, she's in her groove, she's going on. And somebody in the chat who had their headphones not straight told her the audio was broken, and she touched one thing and disconnected her entire audio, and she could never get it back for the stream. So the rest of the time she had to use like an extra mic that wasn't correct. And it doesn't help because Cheryl and her are not audio professionals. They had no idea how to fix that on the fly, and they end up breaking the stream. So
you know, that's such a perfect, like story to mention the reason why you would want a remote producer, because as a producer, somebody in the chat could have their system messed up because they have two browsers open and now they're hearing double audio, and then they hear that and have to type it right away, which caused like that incident with Kathy where she totally started looking for something that was the guest or the viewer's fault or their situation. They had the double audio, and it ended up ruining her stream because she was trying to find something that wasn't even an issue. With a producer, I know exactly what's going out. So that's that ease of mind that sets to, the clients like you and Katie, where you can just focus on the conversation. And even if you were to see a random comment like that, know that somebody in the background is already either taking care of it or for sure knows it. Now, if you don't have a remote producer, this is where a lot of times you would rely on your moderators in the chat, where
Paul just mentioned that.
Them.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like you would listen to your moderators and let them know because they're more in tune to what the production should be like, and they were not going to give you any false information. So that's one thing that I would recommend. And it could be the key thing of why you might want to get a remote producer.
Yeah.
It's also, that part is important because that's not going to come up unless you are doing similar to what we're doing, which is live recording your episode, or your show is also a live stream. And so, yeah, I think it just comes down to training, like knowing what is worth answering and what's not worth answering. I think at this point, like if we know and trust that the final results is going to be the way that we want, because we know that these episodes are going to be edited, we can ignore those comments because, again, we have a producer, we have a moderator who's in the chat, and so we're able to set expectations without derailing the conversation. Because the problem is that if you don't have a producer or a moderator, or you're not editing that episode and you allow that conversation to derail you, then you're forcing yourself to do the extra work of having to go back in and edit that episode, or that episode doesn't turn out the way that you wanted it to because you were derailed in the conversation and it went off in a way that you didn't want to go. So,
there you go. This was it's more than we thought. Like it was actually pretty good.
Yeah,
we could probably do this for like another hour because it is.
We could do a take two.
It is a lot, and I do appreciate when we had the decision to try to do remote producers so that we could show other people how to do it. We didn't realize it was going to make our job so much easier. Like it legit made our job so much easier. And it's funny because I say the same thing Katie said at the very beginning. I was like, Katie and I are both fully capable of running the show by ourselves, but there is something dope about being hands off and having somebody else produce it for you. So I highly suggest you do two things. I highly suggest you try it, even if you are the remote producer, and the other one is exactly the opposite. You try what it's like to be on one where it's remote produced. So try both sides of this equation, because I think the one thing that makes it good for Luis is he knows both sides of it. And I still to this day know people who are doing guest interviews who have never been a guest, and they do not understand the things that the guests go through, which is why they still have the same questions that are technically, they should know. They would know if they experienced that side of it. So you should definitely, whether Ecamm for Zoom or the regular interview mode, you should be our guest. Be our guest. Sorry. How my brain works.
That brings it to this thing that I wrote down earlier in today's episode, which was when Katie was talking about the tour guide at Disney, right? And how that experience changed everything. And I wrote down this question, which was, does your podcast need a tour guide?
Yeah.
There you go.
Probably yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, that takes us to the end of that's like the perfect close right there. Does your podcast need a tour guide? I love it, Luis.
That's so good.
Now we got to do what we always do, which is our ad reads. And you see, we're explaining it now, but usually this is seamless where we would just transition. And when I find that gap around this time, the closing is when I'll just pop in the screen and let the guys take over.
This and every episode of The Flow, you can find all the information at flow.ecamm.com. You can leave us a voicemail. You can leave us a review. Please leave us a review. And it allows you to connect to whatever your podcast getting source is, or as I say, wherever your podcast getting is got. We do host this particular show on Captivate. And this is just the nice back end, which is hosted on Podpage, which we'll talk about on a different day. And then we like to send love to our sponsor of this week's show, which is Shure. Shure, as you know, we all have Shure microphones. This is just how we get down. They are the best. And congratulations on Shure for celebrating 100 years of microphone creating history. So go and check out Shure and tell them that we sent you. And this reminds me, I have to call back LD because I left her with a message yesterday.
See, it's a good reminder. Ad reads are a good reminder.
Yeah, and we still have stuff to talk about, including how we transfer files and things like that. But
yeah, we'll do that.
Well, we will definitely do
later.
a take two.
Okay, gang, you know what we say around here. Thank you, Luis. Thank you, Kates. Flow Riders, out.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, nephew.